Apparently, we're having trouble staying connected. So I'm going to diagnose the problem. As I was saying, I aspire to be the Adam Savage of lightsabers, and unintentionally, not on purpose, I injured my thumb this week. Last week it was Adam Savage injuring his hand. Nearly chopped the end of my thumb off while chopping garlic for what turned out to be a really amazing onion soup. And since my boys don't like onions, I renamed it um, Baby Yoda Mandalorian Bone Broth, and they liked it. It's all in the name. So I've discovered this week that there are a billion things that require two thumbs, and that everything in the shop has been harder with just the one shop. Oh, good. Comments are coming in, so that means people are joining me. You're here. You know what? I should have grabbed a coffee. Grab a coffee. Glad you're here. Thanks for joining me. As I mentioned before, there's a box if you're on your computer. If you're a box to the bottom right where you can enter chat text, and that will come up on my screen as a question or a comment. And if I don't address your question or comment, then just please ask it again in a couple of minutes. Sometimes they get firing pretty quick, and I don't have time to get to them all. And I really want to respond to your questions and your comments since you took the time to join me. So yeah, anyways, everything's been difficult with one thumb. Hello from Oklahoma City. Ever plan to do a Jedi holocron? Thanks for your question, Miguel. I'll let you in on a little secret. Originally, when I did my holocrons, I did a Sith version, which I loved. The design of it, everything came together, the way it fit, the way it worked beautifully. And a Jedi cube, which I was never really happy with. It was just a big chunk of glass with some acrylic. You know, I did my best. I wasn't really happy with it. So unless I come up with a design, ideas in the background, and I don't know if I'll ever get around to them. Presently, no, I'm not going to be doing a Jedi holocron. Because I don't produce stuff unless I really love it. What's your favorite lightsaber from the trilogies? That question comes up every time I go live. So every time I go live, I'm just going to pick a different one, just because I really don't know. I tell people that kind of my two top sabers from the canon Star Wars films are the Dooku hilt and the Qui-Gon hilt. Those are kind of generally my two favorites. But as a designer, I always see the hilts and nothing really grabs me and screams, yeah. Rather, I see them and I think, wow, if I had done that, I would have done this, or I would have gone this direction. So, what would you recommend for letting me prices on Etsy? I don't know what that means, but I'll interpret it however I want. And so I'm going to interpret that as a question about how to set saber prices. There's a lot out there, and I generally tell people you get what you pay for. If you're buying a saber for me, you're paying for one that's made by a guy who's been doing this for 20 years, as opposed to a person who's doing this for a couple of months trying to make a buck on Etsy. I'm not accusing you of doing that, whoever asked that question. I'm just saying there's a big gap, and experience matters, skill matters. I missed that last question, whoever asked it. Oh, there it is. Appreciate it, no problem. Wait for the inspiration. Oh, that's about the Jedi holocron. Yeah, so prices are going to vary on sabers. I'm making some stuff right now for the May the 4th Be With You sale, which a lot of people misunderstand. At GCS, I don't do a sale as in let's slash an opportunity to do special stuff. I don't have an opportunity, a little more expensive. But that's my gig. I do high-end stuff. I don't do economy cheapo stuff. That's my niche. That's my thing. So that's what you can expect from me. Great content, great questions. Keep them coming. Would you consider a shop tour of your workshop? Yeah, you know what? I'll give you here. Are you ready for this? This is the tour. You getting it all? There you go. All the top secret, latest and greatest. That's it. That's my shop. And it's not really big. Really the most exciting. I do have a milling machine, a 100-year-old lathe. I don't have 3D printer or laser cutter or some of that cool stuff. So really, this is just my space, and it's where I create my little studio. So I don't know that I'm going to do a tour and get into detail. Part of it is because when I started doing this as a hobby or even as a business, there was maybe half a dozen people around the world doing what I'm doing. And now there's a whole bunch, and I kind of don't want to enable my competition or people that are going to try to compete with me. I had a question about the High Republic. I kind of feel the same way I do or did about the Disney era films. I'm cautiously optimistic. As you know, some of you who follow me, I'm a huge fan of the expanded universe, now called Legends, and I don't feel like the new films lived up to the story quality of the expanded universe. So I've read a couple of novels in the new canon, and they didn't really grab me. So I'll give it a try, and I hope they do a really great job and create good stories and reinforce the lore as opposed to trying to start it all over again, reboot it. We'll see. High Republic stories, yeah, I'll give it a shot. What are your favorite parts of the prequels? Well, there's so many. As some of you know, I was 11 years old when I saw Empire Strikes Back, first film I saw in the theater. And of course, the blaster fighting, the lightsabers, just the props, the imagery, the ships. It's hard to say because so much of it is nostalgia that Star Wars is my childhood, is the formational years of my creativity. So there's a lot about the original films that I love. Is there a way to mute a saber with CFX on the go? Yes, actually. You can go to the Facebook page called CFX Users, CFX Official, something like that, CFX Official. And you can ask around on there, or you can read the manual. I know it's a 100-page manual, but once you start scanning, you can start to really pick out what it is that you're looking for if you take a little bit of time with the Crystal Focus manual. From Collector Labs, you can download it now. You can find what it is that you need, mute on the go, especially if you learn the terminology. So you can go online and go, okay, what is the name for the thing that I'm trying to change? Oh, that's the name in the manual, mute on the go. Okay, here's how you do it. Sometimes it's as simple as just holding the auxiliary button on while you're turning the power on. Any plans to make another crystal chamber saber? Yes. When? I don't know. Since we moved, or I say we in terms of the hobby, people like me moved over to the pen platform. It's changed a number of things. I just haven't caught up with a new chassis, a new style for crystal reveal sabers, and it takes a lot of time. So I will eventually. What kind of wire should I use for Crystal Focus? I think it's the Crystal Focus 9. Generally wire, just as long as it's a good quality wire, stranded, you can get away with 28 gauge unless you're going with NeoPixel or Plector Pixel. They suck a whole lot more power. There's a whole lot more amps running through those wires. They'll heat up and melt unless you have an adequate gauge of wire. And as some of you know, the lower the gauge number, the thicker the wire. It's like a shotgun. A 12 gauge is a lot bigger than a 410 gauge. Bigger number, it was 410 gauge, yeah. Bigger number, smaller wire. So a 24 or 26 gauge wire is going to be heavier, beefier than a 28 gauge wire. Sometimes you can double up. That's you need for, is it Crystal Focus 9 and a Tri-Cree. Really, unless you're running it at long distances, 28 gauge is fine. For the power, you can do 26 if you want. Are you going to do any more live saber builds? I don't think I ever did a live saber build. When I build a saber, unless it's just assembling some parts that I've already got prepped, can be spend weeks on preps and then assemble sabers in a couple of hours for my production series sabers. When I design and build a high-end one, we're talking like 10 to 30 hours. So no, that's not going to be a live thing. Somebody asked if I prefer Tri-Cree or NeoPixel. They're really apples and oranges. For dueling, for battling, full on, definitely Tri-Cree. For flash show, choreographed stuff, NeoPixel. Quad Cree or NeoPixel. I messed around with Quad Crees a while back. What I needed to do was to machine down the body so it fit in my mechanisms and things. And half the time I ended up wrecking it. So I just decided a couple years ago, I'm scrapping it. I'm not going with Quad Crees anymore. It's either Tri-Cree or NeoPixel. Do you know why it takes so long to get approved by Saberfont? I don't know. I know that they're busy and they're a small staff and they do great work. But sometimes it may take a while to get an answer to your emails. I have no idea why it takes a long time to get approved. If you're thinking as a saber, as a font maker, maybe they have a background check or something. I don't know. Maybe you know what? Back in the day when I started, I think there were some of us that had to review new saber font makers to make sure their work was up to snuff, because there's just so many fonts out there now. You might be buying a font. It would be a shame if you spent good money on a font and it was just really crappy. So there might be some quality checks or something like that, boxes that you have to tick to pass. But thanks for bringing up the prospect of saber font. That was really cool. All my stuff is on there. How often do you accept commissions for a lightsaber build? Excellent question. How often do I accept commissions? Never anymore. I used to accept commissions. I remember one day I built a saber for a guy that he loved. It was like $2,000 saber. I hated it. And I thought, I don't want to do work on stuff that I don't like. It was his design, his creation. He wanted me to build it for him. It was years ago. So I said, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm only going to build stuff that I like. So then I developed a system where people could submit ideas. And if they were willing, I could work with them to come up with a design that was mine, that they had some input on, and I would build for them. But even though we're maybe talking about a $3,000 saber, the amount of time that goes into that, I end up making less money for my time than I would doing production series sabers and things like that. So I have to balance that. And it got to a point where I couldn't afford the time anymore to do those projects, or at least to put the desired time into the design. And I found that I just didn't have the time, and I felt rushed on the designs. And that's the heart of what I do. I love designing, and I do not want to feel rushed. I don't want to feel like I'm not able to do my best work. So I don't accept any commissions anymore. What I do now is I do the custom saber list, which you can submit an idea, and whether it's a Bad Axe or a Vector or a Creed or an Ascend, one of my production series sabers, I will customize it. That wait list is about 2 years right now. And then once or twice a year, I'll make a high-end saber, throw it up for auction, and people that want a high-end saber from me, a $3,000 saber, will be able to buy one at that time. Yeah, so people are just kind of catching up to what I'm saying. Collaborations would be a good way to call it, but it's only with my production series saber. There's some information on my website if you want to check it out. It's the biggest factor in your custom wait list on your production sabers. The biggest factor is it costs nothing to get on the custom work wait list. So there's a lot of names on it, pages of names. And while I'm doing the other things, for those of you who don't know, I'm the only person that works at Genesis Custom Sabers. So I'm the mail boy. I am the CEO. I am the advertising department. I'm also the building department. I'm the parts ordering department. I do all that stuff. I sweep the floor. So I need to allocate my time well. And the custom work list, I can only get to a saber, custom production series saber every 2 months. So if you've got pages and pages of people waiting, and I can only do maybe 5 or 6 a year, you do the math. Last year was different because of retooling for Crystal Focus 10. I hardly did any custom work list and just languished. But I'm back on it now. I'm back working on custom work list sabers, getting to people one by one. And I missed a couple of questions while I was yakking. Sorry about that. I've got some stuff I'll show you too if it goes crickets on me. That's my little term for like no interaction. Everyone's tuned me out and I'm alone in the world. Crickets. Hypothetical situation, given no cost restrictions to production, what are some design features you would love to implement in your saber designs? That is an excellent question. I used to joke around about my Saudi prince saber. If there was a Saudi prince who contacted me and said, I have $1 million, I want the finest saber in the world, no hold bar, just, that's my Saudi accent. Apologies to anybody who's from Saudi Arabia. I don't know what to tell you because some of them are things I might actually want to try in the future and I don't want to give it away. But I thought of actually working with a jeweler and doing actual gold filigree in design elements, that have a little bit more to them animation-wise and personality and interaction. The electronics are amazing what you can do with it, and I feel like I don't even really presently do sabers that use all of the capabilities of the Crystal Focus 10. There's just so much. So to play with some of those, mostly it would probably be around the design elements, work with metals and materials outside of traditional aluminum Aluminum's ideal and awesome to work with. Are you going to MegaCon? Will you have a crystal chamber there for sale? No, I only do generally have only done the one local show, the Calgary Expo, which is not too far away from where I live here in near Calgary, Alberta, Canada. But I'm not even doing that this year. It just found that because my customer base is so international, it becomes an expensive show and tell for me. And I love interacting with those people, and I'm going to miss them dearly. I'm not going to be doing shows anymore for the foreseeable future. If you don't already know, I'm kind of like the crazy old wizard of saber making. I love being alone and a recluse and an introvert. So being with people for a weekend is really, really hard for me. I love the people. I enjoy the people. It's just really draining. So I find in previous shows, I would spend months getting stuff ready for the shows. I would spend at least 10 days recovering from the shows, and and they'd still charge me a lot of money. I missed that question too. Some of your questions, if they're really long, I'm not reading them fast enough. So make them a little bit more concise, and I'll endeavor to answer. What soldering station do I use? I have a Hacko 930 something. I've had it for years. It really works well for me. It's an ESD safe, electrostatic discharge safe, so you're not going to accidentally impart static electricity to stuff that you're working on. Really, any ESD safe soldering station, you can probably get some pretty good results with. Keep your tip clean. I use a brass sponge for that rather than a wet sponge, because the wet sponge sucks the heat away and it has to reheat. Brass sponge keeps it clean. Favorite lightsaber fight in all 9 movies? That is probably the easiest question that I've been asked. The Obi-Wan Maul battle after Qui-Gon dies, episode 1, is far and away the best lightsaber fight sequence in all the movies. It's my opinion. And I'm entitled to it. So if you disagree with me, good for you. Let's show you something I'm working on. Crystal Focus 10, sorry. Sometimes I play with sound. Someone suggested this a while ago. I know I'm not the first, someone else has already done this. So TIE Fighter. Smooth swing just lends itself well to the TIE Fighter sounds. I'm actually going to do something with the Crystal Focus 10 TIE Fighter font if I get time coming up. So that will eventually be up on saberfont.com. I just don't know when. I'm not quite done. What's your favorite hilt design that you currently own? I get asked that question a lot too. Funny that you should mention that. Generally, historically, Fulcrum 3 has been my saber. But when I go walking around at the con, when I went to the con, I found myself taking along my Nord Steel Ascend. Now, for those of you who don't recall, I did a number of these, maybe 2 or 3, and this is my own version. It's an Ascend with a special shroud, and I made an etching pattern that resembles the Nord Steel weapons from Skyrim. And this has got a Crystal Focus 9 in it. This tends to be my favorite presently, personal saber design. And I'm actually working on another one of these, a little bit more aged and weathered, with a Crystal Focus version 10 for sale on the May the 4th Be With You sale. So halfway done on that. I did the etching today. I should show you. I've done the machining of the body. You can see the etching. Space for an OLED screen. Oh yes, an OLED screen. Some light windows. It's going to be a really cool saber when it's done. I hope the new owner is thrilled with it. It's a good saber when you don't want to sell it, when you want to keep it. Favorite lightsaber sound font you've made? Rogue is my personal sound font, if I was a Jedi kind of thing. And that was made long before Rogue One. And then adapted. So that would probably be my favorite. I also find myself gravitating to Bespin a lot. Vader just still gives me chills. My Vader OT font, when I fire it up and I close my eyes, I just watched the episode last night with my kids of Rebels, where they introduced Darth Vader in confrontation with the cast of or the characters in Rebels, and the sounds, you still get the same chills with Vader. This is great. Thanks for all the questions so far. We'll do some more and then wrap it up in a little while. I always want to leave people wanting more. I'm just right now racking my brain to try to think, what was it that I wanted to talk about? Because usually I come in with a couple of things. Let's see, I wanted to do the TIE fighter sounds and show the etching, explain my thumb. Did I mention that it's really hard to do things with only one thumb? I've burned myself trying to hold things properly. Minimum hilt ID when you would recommend for Crystal Focus 10. My hilts have varying internal dimensions. Generally 1 inch is the smallest I think you'd want to go. Missed a couple more questions there. So if you keep firing at me and I will do my best to get to them. And if you haven't asked a question yet, now's your time. Now's your chance. I feel like I'm trying to do a telethon where I'm asking for donations. If you haven't donated yet, pick up the phone. Now's the time to donate. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not asking for donations. Could you do a video on how to solder? Yes, I kind of have. I've mentioned and addressed little tips and tricks for soldering in various videos that I've done in my Shop Secrets videos, if you want to look at that playlist on my YouTube channel. Also, there's a number of people that have done some really good soldering tutorial videos, including from Plector Labs. He's got one out there that you can check out. So watch them all. Quarantine hand wound, yeah. I mentioned, if you go back to the beginning of the video, I talked about Adam Savage for the late tuners in who are drawing the comparison. Hope to meet the guy if he comes up here. He was going to be up here for the Calgary Expo, which I'm not having a booth at, but I would probably attend. Yes, there is a Rogue Smooth Swing. Someone just asked the question, Rogue Sound Font, that was my favorite. Yeah, go to saberfont.com. There's a Smooth Swing version of that, $7, and you can download that right now. Yeah, so if Adam Savage comes, I hope to meet him. How many parts are custom and how many do you purchase? That's an excellent question. Generally, when I build or design a saber, I work on a prototype, which is all mine, and then sometimes I try to work with pre-existing parts, like my chassis design parts, so that they'll work with several sabers. When I do my high-end one-of-a-kinds, often I'll use MHS parts from Custom Saber Shop as a base, and then I'll alter them, change them, machine them, use them in a way that achieves my design, just because they're so good to work with. I don't generally do found things. I do things, sometimes with a one-of-a-kind saber. With props, I often use found things. It's a term for prop makers who just find stuff. You may not even know what it is, but it just fits for an aesthetic or a design for your prop. I generally don't use found things in sabers. I want them to actually interact together, but periodically I will work one into a crystal chassis or something like that. Sorry, I'm missing all the questions. Gray Claymore, someone's mentioned that old saber. That was something I always wanted to do, was just build a saber that was designed off kind of like a broadsword, two-handed sword idea, and that was a commission. Someone actually wanted that, so we worked together on that. We'll be doing another one. That was very challenging. What's coming after CFX? Crystal Focus 10, Plector Labs. I don't know if you're aware, but Urbic Plector Labs is updating the firmware and changing the capabilities. Crystal Focus 10 is actually built with the capability to do all kinds of things. Currently, it does a lot of things. And every couple of months, there's a new firmware that's released that increases the capabilities, and you have to read on how to implement those capabilities in your saber. So Crystal Focus 10 is going to be around for a while with increasingly capabilities. Have you ever considered hosting a free-based classes on lightsaber design and construction? That's kind of the intent behind my Mad Cow's Shop Secrets and the videos I did in partnership with the Custom Saber Shop. It was to teach a lot of the questions that I get asked, instead of trying to answer everyone every time I get an email. Do a video for all of you that have wondered about your resistor, about weathering, about scratch and dent repair, about how to fix a speaker. All that stuff's in Mad Cow's Shop Secrets playlist. Do I do installments of other custom companies' sabers for people? I don't know if you mean like if I do videos on other custom sabers. The answer is no. I make sabers, so I kind of focus on my stuff shamelessly. Are you willing to do a CFX wiring tutorial? There's a lot of good information in the manuals. I may do a CFX wiring tutorial at some point. However, like I said before, there are so many possibilities of how you wire and how you utilize a crystal focus that no one video is going to cover them all. So I may do incremental videos that show little bits of things. Like, for instance, at the project I have with the TIE Fighter, I may show how I'm going to use a crystal focus in that. Someone's saying, thank you for your tutorials. You are welcome. Although they are old, hopefully by watching them you can glean some gems of something that's useful for your project. I know how incredible it is to work on a saber and all of a sudden see or understand something that allows you to do what you couldn't do before. And sometimes it's the simplest of tricks that allows you to do what you couldn't do before and achieve your design. And that's an awesome feeling. So I'm happy to be part of that for you if that's the case. So you're welcome. Moment of silence. I just talk so much. Do you like Rey, Kylo Ren lightsaber sound? Yeah, I thought the Kylo Ren lightsaber sounds were interesting. The fractured crystal. I did a sound font called Unhinged, which is based on the Kylo Ren sound font. Someone's asking what inspired this is one of my old T-shirts. If you were to go to my website store, there's the new updated one. This one I still had a couple of these, so it tends to be a work shirt. I don't know, just the idea of a sliced stormtrooper head just implied lightsaber to me, subtle implication. I just thought was a really cool thing. And I was also learning GIMP, which is a kind of a free version of Photoshop at the time. So playing around with the images and doing logos and design stuff was the fun thing. So I just played with it until I had something that I really thought was cool. And that's kind of become the brand, I guess. Been going for 28 minutes. I think we're going to need to wrap this up soon. So if there's any last questions, I will endeavor to answer them. Other than that, I'm going to wrap this up. But it's been so fun. I think we'll probably try to do this every Thursday. Should I put on my data wire? For what resistors should I put on? I use a 330 ohm resistor in the blade for my data line on my NeoPixel blades. So if I get an empty hilt from another company, no, I do not work on sabers that I didn't make. So you can't send in a saber from another company and have me do the install. There are lots of people who will. You can go to the mining colony section on the FX Sabers website, and you can find some people there, find some reputable people, so you can get that done. I think we're going to wrap it up. There are still more questions coming in, and as I looked back on the previous videos, I'm missing like 3/4 of the questions. So I'm just doing my best. Hopefully this has been fun. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully this has made your quarantine a little more bearable. For those of you who also observe Good Friday tomorrow, I will be out of the shop meeting with my family. Some of you know I am a follower of Jesus, and I don't in any way want to push my religion on you, but to encourage you that there is a God and he loves you. And Good Friday is an incredibly significant day. So for those of you who observe it, happy Good Friday. See you next time.